Hi, I'm Kinkas and I'm a synth DIY guy. Today we're building an exciting new module from Eurorack Synths, the BBD, or Bucket Brigade, Delay Flanger. A completely analog delay-based effect unit with a bunch of cool features, such as a send and return for the feedback path, 2 types of distortion, 3 filter settings, CV control over delay time, and an internal LFO with a dedicated output, as well as separate wet and mixed outputs. This module sounds amazing, whether as a warm short delay, a flanger, a physical modeling synth, or a glitchy and noisy long delay. In the full kit box you get the usual, a PCB set, a nice black panel, and all of the hardware and electronic components needed for a complete module, right down to the power cable and mounting screws. Now let's go ahead and build Eurorack's BBD Delay Flanger serial number 1. First, I like to measure and label all of my resistors. I trust my meter more than looking at those little color lines. Next, I placed all of the resistors on the main board. I soldered them from above, then turned the board around and clipped all of the resistor leads. Then I mounted the IC sockets. I used the control PCB to hold the sockets in place as I flipped the board over to solder. I normally first solder 2 opposing corner pins on each socket to secure them in place before I proceed to solder all of the other pins. Next, I soldered on all of the diodes. I could have done this back with the resistors, of course, I just forgot. Now on to the ceramic capacitors. Double check the values, place them, and bend the leads outward, so they won't fall out when you turn the board over to solder them. After you cut off the capacitor leads, you might like to touch up the soldering to make it all look nice and uniform. Might also be a good time to clean up your work area. Next up come the transistors. Make sure you have the right value and direction for each one. On some of these you may want to straighten out the leads before plugging them in. Try to approximate the positions of the pads on the board to make insertion easier. Almost done, just install the trim pots. And then the electrolytic caps. Make sure they are correctly oriented. Some of these may also benefit from having their legs straightened with a pair of pliers. Now plug in the ICs. Make sure they're correctly oriented. And install the headers. Make sure they're very straight, making a right angle against the PCB. I solder one pin first and check alignment, then solder the rest. That's it for this board. Let's move on to the control board. Again, we'll start with all of the resistors, as well as the diodes and ferrite beads. Next come the IC sockets. I used the panel to hold them in place while I turned the board over. Now you can install the resettable fuses and the ceramic capacitors. Go ahead and install the LEDs for the overdrive section as well. Check the manual about some options for this section. Next come the electrolytic capacitors, which all go on the other side of the board. Again, make sure they are correctly oriented. Then the regulator. And the power header. Go ahead and plug the ICs into their sockets. For the headers that connect the boards, I like soldering them on with the whole thing assembled. That way I know everything fits. Now the panel hardware. Place but do not solder on the jacks, pots, LED, mounting spacer, and switches. Attach the panel and finger tighten some of the nuts to hold it in place. Turn it around and solder the components. That's it, just add the control knobs. Check the power connector for shorts and plug it in to test and calibrate. Calibration's easy, just follow the directions in the manual. That's it for this video. Check out the next video, which is the demo of this module. Stay noisy, see you next time.